Fighting erupted for a third day today between Thailand and Cambodia along their disputed border. At least 30 people have been killed since Thursday. President Trump said he spoke with the leaders of both countries today and told them to stop. He said he won't make trade deals with either country if they're fighting. The president is in Scotland to discuss trade with British and European leaders. Some Democratic leaders say they're preparing to counter a controversial push by President Trump and other Republicans to redraw Texas's map of congressional voting districts. NPR's Hansi Luong reports on the political fight that could determine which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives after next year's midterm election.
The Texas Republican Party has said redrawing the boundaries of congressional districts is, quote, an essential step to preserving GOP control in Congress and advancing President Trump's agenda. And Trump himself said this month he wants a new Texas map that helps Republicans pick up 5 more seats in the U.S. House.
There could be some other states we're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York says Democrats are preparing to sue.
This is a 5-alarm fire. Now is the time for us to act.
Any Democratic push to redo congressional maps may face legal hurdles. In California, an independent commission, not the legislature, is responsible for redistricting. And in New York, redrawing maps at this point of the decade is not allowed unless ordered by a court. Hansi Luong, NPR News.
The governor of Florida says deportation flights have begun from an immigration detention center in southern Florida. NPR's Greg Allen reports elected officials and lawyers for detainees have filed lawsuits after being denied access to the facility.
Governor Ron DeSantis says 100 detainees who had final removal orders have been deported from the facility, located at an airport in the heart of the Everglades.
This provides an ability to enhance the mission to increase the number and frequency of deportations.
DeSantis says hundreds more have been flown from the facility to other locations in the U.S. before being deported. Several lawsuits are challenging operations at the facility, including one filed by attorneys who've been denied access to their clients. Florida's emergency management director says the lawyers weren't allowed to speak to their clients for technology issues, but that on-site representation will be possible by Monday. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
The University of New Mexico in Albuquerque was locked down for several hours yesterday after a shooting. A 14-year-old boy was killed and a 19-year-old man was wounded. University of New Mexico Police Chief Joseph Silva says it happened early yesterday morning in a dorm room.
It appears that at this time that the individuals were playing video games in a residence that did belong to a UNM student.
After several hours, an 18-year-old man was taken into custody. This is NPR News in Washington. Thousands of people demonstrated in the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur today, demanding the prime minister resign. It's the largest protest since Anwar Ibrahim took office in 2022. People say he didn't bring about promised reforms and has not addressed the high cost of living. In letters to Congress and in public protests in recent days, former National Park Service employees are warning that President Trump's large cuts to the agency will devastate the park's environment and the local economies around them. NPR's Kirk Ziegler reports from one tourist town outside Glacier National Park.
National parks have faced billions of dollars in backlogs for maintenance and infrastructure projects for a decade now, but tourism boosters like Zach Anderson, who runs Explore Whitefish, are worried that the Trump administration's latest cuts could erode the park experience so much that tourists will start going elsewhere. He says well-managed parks make money.
We've got the federal government reducing staff at the national park, and it just seems like there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of counterintuitive decisions being made.
Anderson says Whitefish has seen a drop in its lucrative Canadian tourism market this summer, but is holding on steady thanks to an increase in domestic tourists. Kirk Ziegler, NPR News, Whitefish, Montana.
The Lumberjack World Championships wrapped up in Hayward, Wisconsin last week. Contestants swing axes, wield crosscut saws, and try to knock their opponents off floating logs. This year, there were more lumber jills than ever. Organizers say 45 of the 100 competitors this year were women. I'm Nora Rahm, NPR News in Washington.
This message.
This message comes from Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. President Trump is in Scotland this weekend for a little golf and diplomatic business. But NPR's Franco Ordonez reports he continues to be faced with questions about the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
President Trump is taking a personal day at his Turnberry Golf Club before hosting trade talks with European Union President Ursula von der Leyen. Trump said there's about a 50-50 chance of reaching a new trade deal ahead of next week's deadline for new tariffs on the EU. But overshadowing the trip is the political firestorm in the U.S. about Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are. I mean, I watch you people. It's so sad. You ought to talk about the success of our country.
Trump has been trying to distance himself from the Epstein controversy, but he's facing backlash from supporters who want more information. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, Glasgow.
An Arizona woman has been sentenced to prison for her role in a scam that helped North Koreans steal American identities. NPR's Elena Wise reports the fraud involved 68 stolen U.S. identities and more than 300 American companies.
Christina Chapman will spend 8.5 years behind bars for helping North Koreans illegally land IT jobs at American companies. The Justice Department said the scheme was one of the largest of its kind to ever come through the agency's doors. North Korea is under sanctions for its nuclear weapons program. The U.S. says it uses IT workers across the globe to skirt those sanctions and generate funding anyway. Between 2020 and 2023, Chapman and her co-conspirators brought in some $17 million in revenue for North Korea. North Korean workers using stolen identities also tried to join ICE and the Federal Protective Service, but were unsuccessful. Alana Wise, NPR News.
Heat advisories are in effect today across a good portion of the country, down the southeast coast, across the Tennessee River Valley, and up into the Dakotas. Cody Ledbetter is a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. He says people should be extra cautious if they venture outdoors.
If you do have to be outside, really take some time to, take frequent breaks, drink plenty of fluids, stay hydrated. Big one is to not, leave any, pets or children or anyone really in any vehicles for any large amount of time.
He says it's likely to remain hot and humid in roughly 2/3 of the country. Storms in northern China are unleashing flash floods. Officials say one industrial city near Beijing received a year's worth of rain in 24 hours, forcing more than 19,000 people from their homes. This is NPR News. Fighting on the disputed border between Thailand and Cambodia has erupted for a third day. Officials say at least 30 people have died. Both sides are saying they're acting in self-defense and called on the other to stop fighting and start negotiating. Villagers in both countries have been displaced by the violence. Officials say more than 130,000 people have been forced from their homes. 45-year-old Venus Williams won 2 tennis matches before getting knocked out of the City D.C. Open. She said she started competing after a year-long break because she needed the health benefits. NPR's Selena Simmons-Duffin reports.
Venus Williams explained in a post-match interview Tuesday what brought her back to the court.
I had to come back for the insurance because they informed me earlier this year I'm on COBRA. So I was like, I got to get my benefits on.
COBRA allows people who had health insurance through their jobs to keep their plan after the job ends. The Women's Tennis Association told NPR that players are only eligible for WTA health plans if they have a certain ranking and play a certain number of events.
Let me tell you, I'm always at the doctor, so I need this insurance.
Venus Williams has had health conditions. She recently had surgery to remove uterine fibroids, and she's been working to raise awareness about the condition. The U.S. is unique in the way it ties health insurance coverage to work. Selena Simmons-Duffin, NPR News.
In baseball, Nick Kurtz of the Athletics hit 4 home runs in last night's game against Houston. He's the first rookie in Major League Baseball history to hit 4 in a single game. I'm Nora Rahm, NPR News.
This message comes from Ritual. What makes Ritual vitamins different? Ritual vitamins are made with bioavailable, clinically studied key ingredients, as well as the essence of mint. Get 25% off your first purchase when you visit ritual.com/NPR. This message comes from Capital One with the Venture X card. Earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, get premium benefits at a collection of hotels when booking through Capital One Travel. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. President Trump is in Scotland for a 4-day visit. He's to meet with the British Prime Minister and the President of the European Commission to discuss trade. Today, he played golf at one of his 2 golf courses. Demonstrations are being held around the country to protest his visit. French President Emmanuel Macron says France will recognize a Palestinian state, the first G7 member to do so, as part of a larger diplomatic peace strategy. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called Macron's decision to recognize a Palestinian state, quote, a reward for terror. Israeli Ofer Bronstein doesn't get that reasoning. The longtime peace activist who advises President Macron on Israeli-Palestinian relations says sovereignty forces responsibility. He doesn't believe the October 7 attacks would have happened if there had been a Palestinian state.
I have no doubt about it. The best way to fight terrorism is to have a responsibility by the Palestinians. When the Palestinian state will be created, it will guarantee the security of Israel.
He says Netanyahu has given no plan for after the war. He believes other European and G7 nations will support the peace plan put forward by France and Saudi Arabia next week at the UN in New York. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
California is considering a state ban on the use of masks by law enforcement officers in response to ICE agents who conceal their faces as they enforce immigration law. NPR's Martin Costi reports.
The California Assembly is considering a bill limiting when law enforcement officers in the state may conceal their faces on the job. It's prompted by federal agents wearing masks as they detain people on immigration charges. Berkeley Law School Dean Erwin Chemerinsky says the feds would likely challenge the state's power to regulate immigration agents.
Federal officers generally have to follow state laws. They have to stop at red lights and stop signs. They can be sued under state law if they use excessive force. I don't think that law enforcement generally needs to wear masks.
Department of Homeland Security officials say federal agents need to protect themselves from activists who put their photos online, which they say may lead to threats against them and their families. Martin Costi, NPR News.
Republican Governor Ron DeSantis says he'll ask the Federal Emergency Management Agency to pay for a new detention facility in the Florida Everglades, known as Alligator Alcatraz. Tim Padgett of member station WLRN has more.
Although Alligator Alcatraz is for immigrant detention, which is supposedly a federal function, it's run by Florida's Division of Emergency Management, but apparently DeSantis is going to tap into federal FEMA money to reimburse Florida for the $450 million cost of its first year of operation.
Tim Padgett reporting. You're listening to NPR News in Washington. Authorities in New Mexico say an 18-year-old man is in custody after a shooting at the University of New Mexico. It happened early yesterday morning in a dorm room. They say a 14-year-old boy was killed and a 19-year-old man was wounded. Fighting along the Thai-Cambodian border has continued for a third straight day. At least 30 people have been killed. Michael Sullivan reports.
In the worst fighting between the two countries in more than a decade, the Thai Navy says new clashes have erupted along the border of the Thai coastal province of Trat, home to several popular tourist destinations. Both sides blame the other for the fighting that broke out Thursday after a Thai soldier lost his leg the day before after stepping on a landmine while on patrol along the disputed border. Thailand's ambassador to the United Nations told a Security Council meeting on Friday that several soldiers have been injured by newly planted mines since July, claims Cambodia rejects. It accuses Thailand of launching, quote, a deliberate, unprovoked, and unlawful military attack, and says Bangkok continues mobilizing troops and equipment along the disputed border. For NPR News, I'm Michael Sullivan. Chiang Rai.
Tens of thousands of people gathered in Berlin today to celebrate the German capital's Pride Parade, one of the largest LGBTQ plus celebrations in Europe. Revelers waved rainbow flags and bottles of beer. The parade route included the Brandenburg Gate, a memorial to those who were persecuted and killed in Nazi Germany. I'm Nora Rahm, NPR News in Washington.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Shopify. No idea where to sell? Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. It is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet's best converting checkout to help you turn them from browsers to buyers. Go to shopify.com/NPR to take your business to the next level today. This message comes from Progressive Insurance and the Name Your Price tool. It helps you find car insurance options in your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump is in Scotland this weekend, visiting his golf resorts and squeezing in some meetings with UK and EU leaders. A major security operation is underway for his visit, with officers from forces around the UK brought in to support Scottish police. Some locals, though, are concerned about the scale and cost of the operation. NPR's Fatima Al-Kassab reports from Edinburgh.
President Trump's visit to his golf courses on opposite sides of the country has prompted a major police operation around Scotland, which is expected to cost Scottish taxpayers millions of dollars. Kerry Walsh from Glasgow says she's not sure it's worth it.
So much is being spent on him being here, and I don't know what the benefit of him being here is, if I'm honest.
The Scottish Police Union says resources are stretched, and it may take officers much longer to respond to other incidents over the weekend as a result. Protesters are planning what they are calling a festival of resistance to the president's visit, with demonstrations underway in several Scottish cities. Fatima Al-Kassab, NPR News, Edinburgh.
The controversy surrounding the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has followed President Trump to Scotland, but Trump told reporters upon arriving there that he's focused on making deals, not on conspiracy theories. Officials at New Jersey's Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst have not received orders to prepare space for a federal immigration detention center. That's according to two congressmen who visited the military base. Kenneth Burns of member station WHYY reports on the visit after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth notified the congressman that he authorized the base for use by ICE.
Hegseth informed New Jersey Democrats Herb Conaway and Donald Norcross last week of the move. Conaway's district includes the base.
In fairness to the commanders on the base, they are as much in the dark as we are about what may happen.
Norcross, as well as Conaway, took issue with what they called a lack of transparency from the Trump administration.
You've seen the reports from across this country on how we are not doing the right job of informing not only members of Congress, but our own nation on what's taking place.
Both have also expressed concerns over how the core missions of the base could be affected by housing an immigration detention center. For NPR News, I'm Kenneth Burns in Wrightstown, New Jersey.
A heat wave that has much of the southeast in its grip has health officials warning of the dangers of extreme heat. Dr. Alok Patel is a Stanford Children's Health pediatrician.
Always have a buddy system for going out and make sure people know where you're going if you do have to go outside in the heat, but it's best to stay away from those peak sunshine hours and try to go outside and play in early morning or the evening.
Forecasters say excessive heat will expand from the Mid-South to the East Coast today, with the peak of this heat wave likely to come early next week. The Southeast could see feels-like temperatures topping 110 degrees. This is NPR News. The University of New Mexico says its main campus in Albuquerque will be open today. Authorities have arrested an 18-year-old following a shooting at a dormitory. The incident happened early Friday. A 14-year-old boy was killed and a 19-year-old was wounded. Campus police say 4 people, including the suspect, were playing video games inside a dorm room when the shooting started. A newly popular dating app known as T has been hit with a data breach. The company says hackers have accessed more than 70,000 personally identifying images of users. U.S. Postal Service marking its 250th anniversary today. NPR's Hansi Lobal reports on the milestone as the country's mail service faces an uncertain future during the Trump administration.
What began in 1775 with the horseback riders of the Constitutional Post has become a network for deliveries on foot, by truck, plane, boat, and even mule for about 167 million addresses 6 days a week. These days, people are not relying on mail deliveries as much as they did when TVs ran that 1990 ad from USPS, which is a financial support of NPR. The American Postal Workers Union rallied this week in New York City to protest Trump administration talk of overhauling the independent mailing agency, which generally receives no tax dollars to keep it running. David Steiner is the new Postmaster General.
I do not believe that the Postal Service should be privatized.
It's not clear how Steiner will continue USPS's ongoing reorganization, which so far has led to service cuts and delivery delays. Hansi Lawang, NPR News.
And I'm Giles Snyder. This is NPR News from Washington.
Listen to this podcast sponsor-free on Amazon Music with a Prime membership or any podcast app by subscribing to NPR News Now Plus at plus.npr.org. That's plus.npr.org.
This message comes from Progressive Insurance and the Name Your Price tool. It helps you find car insurance options in your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump is in Scotland this weekend for a little golf and diplomatic business, but NPR's Franco Ordonez reports he continues to be faced with questions about the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
President Trump is taking a personal day at his Turnberry Golf Club before hosting trade talks with European Union President Ursula von der Leyen. Trump said there's about a 50-50 chance of reaching a new trade deal ahead of next week's deadline for new tariffs on the EU. But overshadowing the trip is the political firestorm in the U.S. about Jeffrey Epstein.
So I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are. I mean, I watch you people. It's so sad. You ought to talk about the success of our country.
Trump has been trying to distance himself from the Epstein controversy, but he's facing backlash from supporters who want more information. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, Glasgow.
Rare mid-decade round of congressional redistricting underway in Texas. Republican state lawmakers responding to pressure from President Trump to try to add 5 seats to a state delegation already led by the GOP. Houston Public Media's Andrew Schneider.
The Justice Department has identified 4 districts in which Black and Latino residents dominate as, quote, unconstitutional racial gerrymanders, which it is ordering Texas to redraw. Houston Democratic Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who represents one of those districts, testified before a state Senate committee.
I urge you to reject this partisan gerrymandering of Texas, reject the map from the felon in the White House, and do what's right for Texans.
Texas state representatives will gather Saturday for a field hearing on redistricting at the University of Houston, where protests are expected. I'm Andrew Schneider in Houston.
Gaza health officials and the ambulance service say at least 25 people were killed by Israeli airstrikes and gunshots overnight as ceasefire talks appear to have stalled. Officials said today the majority of people were killed by gunfire while waiting for aid trucks close to a border crossing with Israel. The BBC's Bernadette Keel reports.
The UN says 1,000 people have been killed at food distribution points set up in May, branding them a sadistic death trap. The sites were established by the US and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. A former US Special Forces soldier who was hired to provide security told the BBC he saw tanks and mortar rounds attacking desperate crowds. In response, the Israeli military has issued a statement saying it was installing fences and signs and opening additional routes to minimise, in its words, possible friction between the population and IDF forces.
Palestinians are facing a hunger crisis in Gaza with reports of increasing numbers of people dying from causes related to malnutrition. This is NPR News. Fighting between Thailand and Cambodia is now in its 3rd day. The first shots fired on Thursday. Since then, at least 30 people have been killed and tens of thousands displaced. The UN is calling for restraint and is urging both countries to resolve a long-standing border dispute through dialogue. As one of Europe's biggest pride parades gets underway in Berlin today, police officers are out in force to prevent potential clashes with an anti-pride protest also due to take place. Esme Nicholson reports that some pride parades in Germany have been called off this year because of threats.
Police are taking precautions ahead of a counter-protest against, quote, pride, terror and identity disorders, which aims to disrupt Berlin Pride, known as Christopher Street Day. It's one of 18 anti-pride demonstrations that have taken place in Germany so far this year, according to SEMAS, an organisation that monitors extremism. Germany's domestic intelligence agency has designated the anti-pride protesters as far-right extremists who are prepared to use violence. The president of Germany's lower house, the Bundestag, recently decided to stop flying the rainbow flag for Pride. In response, Berlin's Transport Authority has decorated its Bundestag subway station in rainbow colours. For NPR News, I'm Esme Nicholson in Berlin.
In Major League Baseball, the Athletics' Nick Kurtz is now the first rookie in MLB history to hit 4 home runs in a game. Kurtz hit his homers during last night's game against Houston, in which he also matched the MLB record with 19 total bases. This is NPR News.
This message comes from ZipRecruiter. Finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack, unless you use ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them for you. That's why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/ZIP. This message comes from Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump is spending the weekend in Scotland, his late mother's home country. He's playing golf, promoting golf resorts he owns there, and is to meet with British and European leaders. But issues back home have followed him, as NPR's Lauren Freyer reports from Edinburgh.
Stepping off Air Force One in Scotland, President Trump dodged reporters' questions about his former friend Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm focused on making deals. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are.
Trump is promoting his business interests here, inaugurating a new golf course at one of his resorts, and also talking trade and tariffs with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. But Scottish protesters lined his motorcade route, some with signs about Epstein. They also installed a sign at the entrance to one of Trump's golf resorts here saying it's, quote, twinned with Epstein Island. Lauren Freyer, NPR News, Edinburgh.
Some leaders of the Democratic Party say they are preparing to counter a controversial push by President Trump and other Republicans to redraw congressional voting districts in Texas. And here's Hansi Lobong reports on the political fight that could determine which party controls the U.S. House of Representatives after next year's midterm election.
The Texas Republican Party has said redrawing the boundaries of congressional districts is, quote, an essential step to preserving GOP control in Congress and advancing President Trump's agenda. And Trump himself said this month he wants a new Texas map that helps Republicans pick up 5 more seats in the U.S. House.
There could be some other states we're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York says Democrats are preparing to sue.
This is a 5-alarm fire. Now is the time for us to act.
Any Democratic push to redo congressional maps may face legal hurdles. In California, an independent commission, not the legislature, is responsible for redistricting. And in New York, redrawing maps at this point in the decade is not allowed unless ordered by a court. Anzi Luong, NPR News.
A newly popular app known as T, which shot to the top of App Store charts, has been hit with a data breach. NPR's Bobby Allen reports that hackers accessed more than 70,000 personally identifying images of users.
The app T recently has been surging in popularity, particularly among Gen Z users, that allows women to anonymously review dates with men. It rose to the top of App Store charts after going viral on Reddit and TikTok. In order to sign up for the app, users have to submit a selfie and a photo of their ID. The company now says 72,000 images, including thousands of selfies and IDs, were accessed in the data breach. The hacked images were posted to the fringe right-wing message board 4chan. Users there were angry about the app for its approach to women's dating safety and called for a hack. A spokesperson for T says third-party cybersecurity experts are working around the clock to secure its systems. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
This is NPR. Voters in Taiwan seem to have rejected an attempt to recall about 1/5 of the island's parliament. Preliminary results from today's recall election show the effort failed to remove lawmakers from the China-friendly opposition Nationalist Party. Stocks gained for the week with both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq hitting record highs. NPR's Raphael Nam reports that investors are hoping the impact from President Trump's tariffs won't be as bad as feared.
The president announced the U.S. had clinched a trade deal with Japan this week. As a result, the U.S. will now impose a 15% tariff on imports from the Asian economy. That's certainly pretty high, but it was lower than the 25% tariff President Trump had first threatened back in April, and investors were relieved. Investors now hope the U.S. can clinch other similar deals ahead of the August 1st deadline the president has imposed. Earnings also contributed to the gains in stocks this week. Companies such as Alphabet, the parent company of Google, announced better than expected results. All three major indexes ended the week with solid gains. Rafael Nam, NPR News.
The owner of Inter Miami is calling Major League Soccer's suspension of Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba a draconian punishment.
Yes, it is.
They were handed a one-game suspension for missing the league's All-Star game, meaning they will miss tonight's game against Cincinnati. Inter Miami says Messi didn't play the All-Star game to rest from a packed schedule and that Alba sat out because of a previous injury. I'm Giles Snyder. This is NPR News from Washington.
This message comes from Ritual. What makes Ritual vitamins different? Ritual vitamins are made with bioavailable, clinically studied key ingredients, as well as the essence of mint. Get 25% off your first purchase when you visit ritual.com/NPR.
This message comes from Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Giles Snyder. President Trump is expected to play some golf today. He's in Scotland this weekend to visit his two golf courses and to talk trade with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and European Union officials, telling reporters upon landing in Scotland that he thinks there's a 50-50 chance at concluding a trade deal with the EU.
And that would be actually the biggest deal of them all if we make it.
Trump's visit to Scotland is being overshadowed by his ties to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Trump dismissed the idea of a pardon for Epstein's imprisoned former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her attorney says she has completed a second day of interviews with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and although she would welcome relief, he says there have been no discussions about a pardon. Florida's governor says deportation flights have begun from an immigration detention center in southern Florida. NPR's Greg Allen reports that elected officials and lawyers for detainees have filed lawsuits after being denied access to the facility.
Governor Ron DeSantis says 100 detainees who had final removal orders have been deported from the facility, located at an airport in the heart of the Everglades.
This provides an ability to enhance the mission to increase the number and frequency of deportations.
DeSantis says hundreds more have been flown from the facility to other locations in the U.S. before being deported. Several lawsuits are challenging operations at the facility, including one filed by attorneys who've been denied access to their clients. Florida's emergency management director says the lawyers weren't allowed to speak to their clients for technology issues, but that on-site representation will be possible by Monday. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
Aid agencies warning of mass hunger in Gaza. Israel says it will allow the airdropping of supplies. The group Doctors Without Borders says airdrops might help but would be insufficient. And ceasefire talks appear to have hit a standstill. The U.S. and Israel recalled their negotiating teams this week. Meanwhile, France has announced it plans to recognize a Palestinian state, the first G7 member to do so, as part of a larger diplomatic peace strategy. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called Macron's decision to recognize a Palestinian state, quote, a reward for terror. Israeli Ofer Bronstein doesn't get that reasoning. The longtime peace activist who advises President Macron on Israeli-Palestinian relations says sovereignty forces responsibility. He doesn't believe the October 7 attacks would have happened if there had been a Palestinian state.
I have no doubt about it. The best way to fight terrorism is to have a responsibility by the Palestinians. When the Palestinian state will be created, it will guarantee the security of Israel.
He says Netanyahu has given no plan for after the war. He believes other European and G7 nations will support the peace plan put forward by France and Saudi Arabia next week at the UN.
This is NPR. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating after a Southwest Airlines passenger jet had to dive to avoid a mid-air collision. The incident happened shortly after takeoff from Burbank, California. The online flight tracking service Flight Radar 24 identified the other aircraft as a British-built Hawker Hunter fighter jet. The Southwest flight continued on to Las Vegas without further incident. No injuries among passengers were reported, but Southwest says 2 flight attendants were hurt. A similar incident involving an Air Force B-52 bomber happened in North Dakota earlier this week. In Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda-backed M23 rebels say that a final peace settlement will occur only under a different central government. Emmett Livingston reports on the troubling side for the U.S.-backed peace talks between the rebels and the Congolese government.
The chief negotiator for the M23 rebel group announced that for peace to return to Congo, a new central government will be needed in the capital, Kinshasa. Speaking in Goma, a Congolese city occupied by the rebels, the negotiator contradicted Congolese ministers who recently argued that peace talks would lead to the return of government authority nationwide. It's a troubling sign, as the rebels are effectively calling for Congo's incumbent rulers to step aside. The US has been applying heavy pressure on Congo and Rwanda, the country that supports the M23, to try to achieve a lasting peace deal. An agreement between the Congolese government and the M23 rebels is meant to be signed in mid-August, but it's now in doubt. For NPR News, I'm Emmett Livingstone in Kinshasa.
And I'm Giles Snyder. This is NPR News from Washington.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Shopify. No idea where to sell? Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. It is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you're a garage entrepreneur or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool you need to start, run, and grow your business without the struggle. Once you've reached your audience, Shopify has the internet